Here's a story of my very first professional work experience. Let me lay the context here. It's 1986. I'm a junior in college. I decide to take a 6 month co op assignment, and I go to IBM Federal Systems Division in Owego, New York. And I had, so because it was a 6 month assignment, I had the opportunity to move around in some different groups. So I'd been there for a few weeks, and I had an opportunity to move on to another group. So I only had a few, by the time I started in this project, I only had a few weeks left in school, which is kind of relevant, as I'll get to in a second. Um, and my manager's name was Christine. And so let me give the context of the project so it'll make a little bit of sense, hopefully. It didn't make a lot of sense to me at the time, but I'll try to make some sense. So IBM, the group that I worked on, they did flight simulators for the military. So they had done previously to this, they had done the C-130 flight simulator, and they'd done the Apache helicopter flight simulator, and maybe some other ones, but those are the two that I knew about. And what they learned or from doing these two flight simulators is that they had a lot of infrastructure. It was very expensive for them to develop the core infrastructure. And what they thought they were going to get, or they thought that they could get more of these flight simulator contracts, and that what they were motivated to want to find a way to do was to eliminate eliminate having to re-engineer the common parts of the flight simulator and the whole infrastructure around it. And so what this came down to is what they described to me as a reusable lab configuration. And what this was going to be, now this was 1986. Network PCs were very new, and this technology that I worked on was token ring, which was very new at the time, and something that still never, even to this day, has really taken off in a really super big way. So, but this reusable lab configuration is just a room, okay? Just a room with tables and PCs around it, and a wire that goes around, a token ring wire that goes around and connects these things up. And this was going to be their reusable lab configuration. And now they never really described to me, like, how does basically an empty room filled with PCs connected by a token ring wire, how does that get you to a flight simulator for a C-130 or an Apache? Like, this is something I was very fuzzy about, and they never really explained this to me. I'm not really even sure the project was far enough along for them to really even kind of figure out what any of this even meant. All right, so that's the context. And so what Christine, she sat down with me, and she explained basically what she just said in about that level of detail. I mean, she did not give me a whole lot to go on, is the point here. And she said, now what I want you to do is I want you to write a document that describes how the computers in the lab are going to communicate. That's it. That's what she said. Pretty vague, right? I mean, how they communicate. I mean, what does that mean? And you want me to write a document at what level, right? I mean, I knew nothing about networking at the time. Knowing what I know about networking now, I would say, what is it? Please do not throw open please do what's the stack, the protocol, the open stack. Please do not throw sausage pizza away. So it's the physical layer, the data layer, the transport layer. Anyway, so there's these different layers, right? So, I mean, one of the flaws in this write a document that describes how they're going to communicate is that it doesn't really communicate what what are we talking, like physically, how they're physically going to communicate? Like you want me to draw some type of lab configuration showing the wires at what level? Electronically, at the application level, how are they going to communicate? At the transport layer, how are they going to communicate? But that's only what I can say now, sort of knowing something about networking. At the time, I didn't even know any of that, right? Like, it was an extremely frustrating project because obviously I want to please my manager and give her what she wants, but she's asking for something extremely vague and also sounds like something that's extremely outside the scope of something that a junior in college intern is going to be able to accomplish in a few weeks before they leave and go back to school. So it was really quite a frustrating project to be given. And so the conversation with me back to Christine would go something like this. Christine, I'm a junior in college. I'm going back to school in a few weeks. Now, it sounds to me like what you want me to do is that you want me to write a protocol specification document that describes this. And she would say, no, 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 no. That's not what I want. I don't want you to write a protocol specification document. I want you to write a document that describes how the computers in the lab are going to communicate. And I would say, that's a protocol specification document, right? So like we were just at loggerheads over this. I didn't know what she wanted. I didn't know how to give it to her. She couldn't really describe what she wanted to. And so that was the situation. All right. So obviously this thing never went anywhere, right? I mean, I went back to school and as far as I know, nothing ever came of this reusable lab configuration. And for all I know, they never got another one of these flight simulator contracts, and the whole thing was probably, moot to begin with. But let's look at this now, since this is a channel on Stoic, combining Stoic philosophy and software development, the life of a software development. So let's shift gears here now and talk about, now that I'm, have a lifetime of experiences, looking back on this, I do reflect on this. This is another one of these situations I reflect and I play it back and I wonder, I ask myself, how would you handle that situation today? Because these things do still come up today. I'm sure you've had, situations like this for you that have come up. Vague things that your manager asks you to do that possibly are outside the scope of something that's realistic. And how do you go about dissecting this? So here's a few ideas, again, from many years of reflection on this that I'll share about how to deal with this. Okay, so first thing, I guess, is just general attitude, right? You want to go into this with as positive of an attitude as possible and with a can-do problem solving attitude. That just goes for anything like that. I fail at this a lot, but I try to, somewhere down deep in there, remember to try to approach it with some kind of positive outcome mindset. So that's the first thing, is just an attitude, just a general attitude check on yourself. All right, so the next thing I would say is you want to try to assess the situation in terms of, risk reward profile. And in this case, it's a relatively low risk, relatively low reward situation. I don't have any stock or anything like that. I don't have a lot on the line here. I get paid an hourly rate, which was extremely low for the time. I'm embarrassed to say how low it was. It's, peanuts by today's standards. And also it's low risk in the sense that they're not going to fire me, right? I mean, they're IBM. Unless I commit sexual harassment or something like that, it's going to take them longer to draw up the paperwork than it is for them to fire me. And so, it's a low risk, low reward situation. So because of that, you can just kind of relax a little bit, right? So a correct judging of the situation and a correct alignment with yours, attitude and stress level that matches the current situation can be helpful. In this case, like if I just relax, and then building on top of that, relax, try to learn something, try to have fun with it, and try to learn something, right? Um, Token ring, that's interesting. I never heard of token ring before. Try to learn about token ring. Try to learn about, um, you know, the these PCs and how they connected. The whole thing didn't work either. But that was another problem. Is that the guy that was in the lab actually physically trying to program the token ring, it didn't work at all, right? So that could have been another interesting thing. Try to figure out why did this thing not work? I mean, you literally put bits in one computer and read those same bits back out on the next computer, and they wouldn't match each other. Like, I mean, it literally just did not work at all. And I don't mean like 99%, like 99% of the bits got through and 1% you could address that with some kind of, error checking or CRC. No, I mean, like, complete nonsense. Bits go in one end, out the other end. But anyways, what can you learn, right? Try to dig in, try to find something, relax, have fun with it, try to learn something, try to find something interesting about the project that gives you, if you can find something interesting, then it gives you some sort of foothold into, particularly in a sort of vague or unrealistic project like this, some kind of foothold that you can attach yourself onto. Okay, next thing, kind of general advice, authentic communication, right? You want to just sit down with the manager and have, genuine, authentic conversations. I think one thing I try to catch myself when I do it is, I tend to start thinking about like why it won't work, or I tend to maybe come across argumentative or why it won't work. And, that's my general approach as an engineer, is like, I'll eliminate all the reasons why something won't work. And then that clears the path to success. But other people, they don't see it that way. Right. So you want to try to come at it with, you know, with an attitude, and having authentic conversations with your manager, trying to really tease out of her what she wanted, maybe brainstorming with her. What about this? What about that? Probably I could have done a better job in that situation with having some authentic conversations with her. Although I would say that she didn't have a lot of time for me either. So this was kind of a no-win situation to begin with. So there's probably not a whole lot that I could have done that would have really affected any kind of different outcome, other than just internally, like, try to learn something for yourself. I mean, you're not gonna produce an output for them, right? You're not gonna produce an actionable output for them. It's because it's ridiculous. I mean, the project's ridiculous. So in that case, say, well, what can I get out of it? What can I learn? All right, and then building on top of the authentic conversations, obviously asking clarifying questions, right? I mean, this is something that we learn in technical interviews. This is one of the top recommendations for all technical interviews: is you want to ask clarifying questions. Try to at least understand what is being asked as best as possible. Again, in this situation, it was a bit of a no-win situation. I'm not sure that any amount of clarifying question asking could have helped, but looking back on it, I probably could have done a better job of asking clarifying questions. Okay, so another idea is, as you start to make contact with this project and turn it over in your mind, and you kind of start to rototiller this thing and start to come up with some kind of idea of how to make sense of this. You want to try to transform the project into something that you can get action on, right? Like, if I'm not going to be able to give her what she wants or what she thinks she wants, I'm not going to be able to give her this, write a document that blah, 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 right? Like, so try to transform it into something that I can deliver. So she's asking for a document, okay? So the only question, so I know at least I'm supposed to give her some paper with some words written on it. And we could dispute what words are supposed to be written on the paper, right? So try to transform the project into something that's non-tractable, non-actionable, into something that is tractable and is actionable. So in this case, maybe what I could have done is say, all right, she wants a document. What kind of document can I give her? Like, start to think about, what types of what sort of deliverable could I have given her in this situation? So, like, maybe what I could do is maybe I could interview people, right? And interview people about protocols, and maybe they would, by interviewing people, they would refer me to other people to talk to, and maybe they would refer me to some document or some books. Like, maybe somebody would suggest a book, and I could go start reading a book, and then maybe this whole process of discovery, of asking people and collecting up and brainstorming, that maybe that just documenting that whole interview process. I could have put that in a document. Maybe that, at least it would be something to, at least I'd be showing an earnest effort. So I think that's another thing you want to think about too, is like, you do want to show in these projects, you do want to show your manager that you are putting in an earnest effort, even if it's off base. Your manager at least sees that you're trying to, to do something productive. And then along those same lines, of course, you'd have check-ins with your manager every week. We did that. Here's another idea: guess and check. Keying off what I was just saying. So just guess at. She wants a document. The document's supposed to say something. I don't know what the document's supposed to say. Just take a guess at what the document could say, right? Like, what could I document? Just take a guess. Since she's not doing a very good job of giving me any direction, take a guess, and then at my next one-on-one with her, present, the outline for the guess of the document, and then I did this a bit. Then she would shoot it down. Right. So, no, that's not what I want. That's what I want. But at least that would be, at least in the process of her shooting it down, it would be, it would give something to go on, guess and check. You guess, and then she says no. And then you say, okay, well, if not this, then what? Right. I mean, at least gives you a way to take the conversation to the next step. Because when I first started on it, I had no idea how to even take the first step. But, like, take the first step, and even if the first step is the wrong step, that wrong step then leads to a conversation that maybe gets you to the right step. And then another thing along the lines here, along in that process, you want to try to the extent possible, you want to try to avoid getting frustrated and avoid taking this personally. Because if you're guessing and checking, then you're probably going to be getting negative feedback, in the sense that, that's what I got. No, that's not what I want. No, that's not what I want. No. And in that process of getting this negative feedback, that can be frustrating. So you need to sort of, check your ego and don't take it personally, and try not to get frustrated, and to view every conversation, however off base your attempt may have been, as a learning process, and something that could eventually get on track to the extent that something is on track. I mean, the problem with this project is there's no good that can come of this in terms of from their perspective. Like, they're not going to get anything actionable out of this. The only good that can come of this is, what do I learn? What do I take away from this? What can I learn about networking? What can I learn about people interaction? What can I learn about, that's the only good that's going to come out of this, because the project itself is kind of ludicrous. Okay, and then finally, I'll just add, kind of circling back around to one of the ideas I said at the beginning, try to learn something, I said, but try to find something interesting about the project. No matter how screwed up it is, no matter how impossible it might be, try to find something that's personally interesting that you can dig into, because that will give you a foothold too. Like, there is something interesting here. In the case of this project, one of the most interesting things was, why did the token ring not work at all? I said that at the beginning, that the person that I was working with, who was actually in the lab trying to write code, trying to actually test out the token ring, he could show that, look, I send 1,000 bits in from this computer, and I receive 1,000 bits out at this other computer, and they don't even match at all. Why? Like, that could be interesting. Who made this card? Who made the token ring card? Is there somebody I can go talk to? Is there, are we doing something wrong? Whatever. I mean, that could have been something interesting. Try to figure out why it didn't work at all. So those are the main reflections I have on that experience. Let me know what you think, and let me know how relevant you think that is to your current projects, and let me know if you've had similar projects where you felt like it was just kind of a ridiculous project, or the ask was kind of silly or ridiculous. Okay, thanks.